Hello and welcome to Policy and Politics special series, The Brands That India Made. And today I am going to speak about a man who said this quote: "Between my past, present and future, there is one common factor: relationship and trust. That is the foundation of our growth." So said Dheeraj Lal Ambani, affectionately known as Dhirubhai, to millions of Indians who put their blind trust in him. And what did Dhirubhai do? He helped them get their kids educated. He helped them get their sons and daughters married. These millions of individuals had put up their 10 rupee shares, and for the first time when they had a public issue, they had invested a few hundred rupees in the Reliance Group, and they reaped benefits, and they are reaping till today. And it's all out in the public domain, so I don't need to say the share price. Even I think as we speak is about 1800. So people have only gained from the group. And if you see now, it's now headed by the second generation, which is Mukesh Ambani and Neeta Ambani. And now the third generation, comprising of Akash, Isha and Anant Ambani, is getting ready to take charge. Now, to discuss this issue on the brands that India made, I have with me one of India's best known brand consultants, Suhail Seth. Suhail, welcome to the Brands That India Made.
Thank you so much, Tarun.
Suhail, legend has it, whenever anyone spoke of Dhirubhai Ambani, he never spoke of Reliance first. Dhirubhai Ambani always spoke of India, then he spoke of Reliance. He said, Reliance will do everything that India needs. Somebody who's in the brands business, what do you think of that individual?
I think it's remarkable when you can take on a pan-national view and then link it to your business. It's a win-win. Because when you say India first, or when you say that it's actually for India, you're including every Indian, not only an Indian living here, but you're including the diaspora. You're taking into account their aspirations, their beliefs, their desires, their wants, their vulnerabilities, their issues, their anxieties. And what Dhirubhai and now Mukesh have succeeded in doing is they've always built on scale. So it's gargantuan, it's almost mammoth-like. And that is a vision, and that's why Mukesh is the true successor of that vision, because Dhirubhai's vision was never about things being small. It was about things being inclusive. It was embracing an India, not embracing a region or a market. He didn't, like most of us marketing people view life, he didn't view it from, oh, I want to be in this market or that market. He says, I want to be across India. I want to include India. I want to embrace, which is why his whole, tryst and enduring love affair, which you've alluded to, with the stock markets. He allowed Indians to benefit from the profit that Reliance made. People have got their wards married off. People have had education done. All of that thanks to the holdings that they had in Reliance at time dot.
So, Suhail, when you speak of scale, I remember something that Anant Ambani said at the Reliance Jio launch. He said his Nanaji told him that if you want to be in the telecom business, your telephone call should cost less than what a postcard is. Now, that kind of vision, a Nanaji gives to Dadaji. Okay, I've corrected. Dadaji gives to his grandson. He tells him that if you want to think of the telecom business, make it cheaper than a postcard.
Now look at the marketing savviness of Dhirubhai. Just for a moment reflect. The postcard in those days, 2002 perhaps or 2003, was 50 paisa. Now I believe the postcard has been discontinued. It's more a tourist attraction. But it used to be 50 paisa. You were also grappling with a country which was not, the whole country wasn't literate in that sense. Reading and writing was not something that was prevalent across India, but people spoke. His logic was that if people can spend 50 paisa on a postcard, and then it takes 4 days for that postcard to reach, why don't you create calls for 50 paisa? What was he doing? He was making connectivity affordable. He was allowing every Indian to talk, whether it was for business, pleasure, leisure, or emotional. He was making parents talk to their kids. He was getting businesses to talk to each other. That's what he was doing.
In fact, I would like your opinion on this issue. I was discussing with someone that after Reliance Jio was launched by Anant Ambani, Isha, Akash and Mukesh Ambani, Nita Ambani, all of them, they were there at the launch. Businesses like Hotstar, Alt Balaji, all the OTT apps have seen their business growing up to hundreds of crores because people have data for cheap. They end up watching the OTT, music, all those TV serials on their OTT and movies, and then ads go into it. And the businesses have been built because of Jio. These businesses, so Jio is a platform on which people are running their businesses today.
You know what Mukesh said at the launch of Reliance Jio still rings in my mind. One of the things he says is that if we want to empower every Indian, we have to empower every Indian digitally. And at that time, the Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, had talked about Digital India. You cannot have a Digital India without data, affordability. You can't have a Digital India without fiber being laid. So what had Mukesh done for the 4 or 5 years preceding? He and Reliance invested heavily in laying the fiber, in creating what I would call the ecosystem for data to be affordable, for data to be available. But a very important thing which people have not talked about to a large extent. India had only 200 million smartphones.
200 million.
The rest were feature phones. You know, like they were ordinary phones. You couldn't do half the stuff that you do now. What he also did concurrently was to invest in giving the Jio phones, which were smartphones.
Yes.
So therefore, not only did you have the data, you had the application, you had the platform, you had the availability. Now you tell me, Airtel, Vodafone, Idea, all these guys have been here for donkey's years.
Yes.
Why did they not think? You know why? They thought consumer, Mukesh Ambani thought India.
Yes.
They thought
so it came from the
share.
father.
They thought market share. Mukesh thought market availability. They thought penetration and revenue. Mukesh thought, no, we have to get people on the same page. And that page was allowing people to use data for their own prosperity. It could be businesses, it could be B2B. Today, what is Jio doing with their point of sale machinery? What are they doing in terms of getting to get the aggregation going with all the mom and pop stores, the Kirana stores?
We'll take a step back here and go back to Dhirubhai. And when we started about, he thought big. There is another aspect of Dhirubhai Ambani which he always spoke of, that I don't believe in meeting deadlines. I believe in beating the deadline.
Absolutely.
And when he started his company from a 350 square feet office in Masjid Bandar in Bombay with a single telephone line and 3 chairs, now that company under Mukesh Ambani has been the first Indian company to touch 10 lakh crores.
Correct.
If Dhirubhai would have been with us today, he would have told Mukesh Ambani that, why didn't you do a year earlier? Would you have done that?
It's such an interesting point. But Mukesh, to my mind, and his team and his people have always beaten every deadline.
They have.
Because he's execution
Because
oriented.
Jamnagar, I think, was ready ahead of time.
Absolutely.
In fact, even when there was a breakdown, it was repaired ahead of schedule.
Absolutely. And the reason is very simple. Every delay costs you money. Every time you hold up a project, it costs you money. When you can save money and start earning revenue, why would you delay? Plus, execution skills of Mukesh are phenomenal.
So, Sohail, I want your opinion on this. You always speak of one thing, and I've been hearing you now for donkey's years, and you always speak of 3S, size, scale, and speed.
Absolutely.
And how do you see Reliance performing on that front?
Just see what they've done, even with their latest businesses. Now, a lot of people used to tell me, Reliance is very good with large businesses. They're not very good with consumer-facing businesses. They don't have a consumer mindset. What did Reliance do with Jio? Today, Reliance runs the largest and the most profitable retail network, whether it's apparel, whether it is food, whether it is farm fresh food, whether it's wet stores. Why? Because he thinks that way. What did Neeta do with Mumbai Indians? Everyone started owning cricket teams.
That's a success story.
She owned not a cricket team. She owned aspiration for empowering young children to play sport.
In fact, since you have spoken about Mumbai Indians, this is a project which I have heard is very dear to Neeta Ambani's heart, which I have personally liked also because the Drishti initiative
Outstanding.
is giving eyes to people. I mean, who thinks of giving the blind eyes? I mean, people build reservoirs, people build bund and check dams, but nobody thinks personally.
Today they run the world's only newspaper in Braille. Today, Reliance exports more mangoes out of its mangroves in Jamnagar than any other place in India. The point is, again, these things are dwarfed because everyone is worried about the size. It's the, 600-pound gorilla in the room.
So
but the tragedy is the gorillas actually perform for India.
Suhail, this brings me back to one more question about Reliance. Does Reliance as a group or Mukesh Ambani himself will not talk much about the good they do because it is so big? Or maybe they're not talking about the work they're doing. Maybe it's on some Twitter account somewhere. But do you think they don't speak as much about as they should?
Absolutely. In fact, many a time I've said this. And I've said that, the work that Reliance Foundation does, look at what Reliance did in the aftermath of many national calamities that India has experienced, unfortunately. I mean, there were garrisons of engineers that were sent out, whether it was in Uttarakhand, whether it was in Surat. Now, that shows a lot of commitment, number one. Number two, if you see today the spend of Reliance Foundation, this is all public figures. It's upward of about 800 to 900 crores. I think they would be the second largest after Tata Trust in terms of spending for philanthropy. No one knows because Mukesh and Neeta are not the kind who would talk about it. Plus, there is a lot of other chatter because of envy in this country that people are saying, "Bhai, wo baat nahi karenge."
So, in fact, if I see Reliance would be spending on charity as much as a small city in India or a mid-sized city does on development.
Absolutely.
In terms of
and I'm not including the stuff that they actually do within their communities.
That's different.
What they do for Jamnagar, I'm not including that expenditure.
Because that's a home city.
That's home city. And that you're doing with the companies
I have one more point, and I don't know if it's true, but I heard it somewhere that this was before the Jio launch. Mukesh Ambani and Milind Devra flew to USA and met Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, and he was thinking Apple then that we should get a view from this angle because I'm going to give India something which is futuristic. And in fact, we all benefited from Jio in a sense because, in fact, I know for a fact that data rates were not what they are today until Jio came in. He's given India that kind. So you see a rickshawala, you see a handcart puller, and everybody has a mobile and consuming data. What kind of mind do you think is needed to think that? I mean, this is pre-Jio. He envisaged this not today. I'm talking of 10 years ago.
But as I said earlier, he didn't look at it as market share. He looked at it as market creation. The tragedy is most of these guys who were in the market were always looking at market share and not market creation. Now tell me, why did the Vodafones and the Airtels not think of market creation in those days? Why did Idea, and I have a lot of regard for Kumar Mangalam, why did he not think of this earlier? The point is they all thought of it post facto.
I want to ask you something, a personal analysis. Everybody other than Reliance has been in the telecom business for years before Reliance was there. Why didn't they build this kind of infrastructure which Reliance did even pre-launch? They could have because they were already in the business.
Because they were interested in analysts. They were not interested in consumers. They were interested in fattening the
or maybe
expanding,
nest. Going abroad and expanding the business.
Absolutely. The point is, all these facilities were available.
Because they all had a first mover advantage.
Now, all the laws are transparent. There is nothing that you can get done in this government. And this government has already served almost 6 years now. So, for anyone to say, oh, rules were tweaked, nothing. You have TRAI, you have TDSAT, all headed by honorable people. These are not people who you can, wish away. You've got a great telecom secretary in Anshu Prakash, who was the former chief secretary of Delhi.
Yes.
These are incredible people of great credibility and honor. So to then say, oh, one company has tweaked, where's the tweaking? Everything is transparent. What did he do? He told you, I will give you data. I'll give you voice for free. You know why? Because voice costs you nothing when you've got that apparatus, A. B. Also, please understand, the move had already shifted in people who were using smartphones. Today, you and I make more WhatsApp calls than we make normal calls. So
he understood that for 5 years ago? Of course, he did.
Also, because the market evolves. And one important point which you've made a reference to is that both Dhirubhai and Mukesh, that is why I always said, even when there were issues, I always said Mukesh is the natural successor. Because what Mukesh has is the twin pillars of scale and size, which Dhirubhai always believed in. Plus their avowed, vision for India. Now, if you look at what they've done, even in their retail businesses, they've bought international brands. Now, they believe that, even look at their latest acquisition of Hamleys. It's a toy business.
Yeah.
Now, this is a market which is the biggest youth market in India, highest population, second highest population in the world. And for God's sake, we are not going to consume toys. Who is? Fiji?
In fact, We have the largest population of 25 years old in this country is all about to get married and have children.
And now
you want to
see-
have the largest number of kids.
Correct. And now see what he will do to the Amazons of the world.
That's very
what
interesting.
What he will do
and
in
before,
the e-platform,
in fact,
that is going to be the
that's
real
what-
war.
So a challenger to Amazon or Flipkart is going to be the next big thing, as Suhail says, and as what we have been hearing. But at this juncture, I'll take a short break, and we'll be right back to talk about more on Reliance, Mukesh, Neeta, Anant, Ambani, Isha, and Akash, and what plans they have for Reliance. Thank you. Welcome back. Just before the break, you had Suhail Seth speaking about what Reliance is going to be next and what breakthrough is going to come in the retail or the e-tailing business, as they say. Suhail, what do you think that the e-tailing business is going to be disrupted by Reliance next?
Absolutely. And you're right. Marketing people use the word disruption. I use the word value creation. Because please understand, today what we are seeing in the market is the worst form of subvention. And there I tend to agree with the government. The government has come down hard on the Amazons and the Walmarts of the world. Because what they're doing is, you are today buying a Samsung fridge for a lesser price than you would buy from a Samsung store. Because this is San Francisco money coming in cheap and subsidizing you and me. This form of subvention will have to disappear.
I want to know this fact from you. If data is the new oil, what is the new Reliance all about?
The new Reliance, to my mind, is a consumer-centric, consumer-facing, and a consumer-believing organization.
Because
it has transformed, it has morphed from a B2B to a B2C to a C2C.
Because, very interestingly, Suhail, as I see it, the Reliance is going to have a millennial leadership. Both, Akash, Isha and Anant, all are millennials. In fact, all born in the early 90s. So with the generational change, and in fact, I have heard Mukesh Ambani also speaking about this, that Reliance is now too big to be just managed by a family. It will be mentored by a family, is what he's indicating in a sense. Do you see the third generation taking roles of mentors in the three companies, which is a retail business, the data business, and the oil business?
Look, all three children, whether it's Akash, Isha, the twins, or Anant, all have remarkably suited specific skills. In the interactions often enough on whether it was the Reliance Foundation, the art initiatives, whether it's the geo-marketing, Isha's grasp is superb. So is Akash's.
In fact,
Anant has wet his hands
and
in
he's
Jamnagar.
the younger of the lot.
The youngest of the lot. So, these are not children who've been brought up in an atmosphere where they are just mere inheritors. They are already contributing. One has seen their contributions.
I remember, and you'll bear me out on this one, I think I have a faint memory of Neeta Ambani giving an interview long years ago where she said that she had even taken the kids many times on Mumbai's local trains to acquaint them with the brass tacks life is what is, because
Must have.
Those are going to be the kind of customers they are going to have, so they should know. And this
must have. In fact, see, with wealth, there comes a perception, that they're disconnected. They're not. They're deeply engaged with the idea of India.
In fact, I have seen Akash, as the data before me shares, is a director in Reliance Jio. He's also a director in a media company, San Media, and Reliance Retail. Akash. And Isha is a director in Jio, Reliance Retail, and even the education business. So Isha is now interested in the education business. I think have big plans for education. Do you think Reliance is going to disrupt the education industry? I'm not saying the next Harvard, but the next Harvard, like big mega education city in India, will be from the house of Reliance?
I would imagine, and I'll tell you why.
Because it is one of the biggest philanthropic things that a corporate...
Correct. And more importantly, when you have platforms as universal, as gender neutral, as income neutral like digital, to then pump in stuff, whether it's an education vertical or whether it's what he's trying to do. Under the foundation, very interestingly, they are trying to double farmer income. Now, that's a very important thing.
Farmer income?
When you're facing agrarian stress and when the agricultural sector is reeling, to then have a company which is committed through its foundation, through its philanthropic arm, to actually double farmer income is a great thing. But now none of these things are even mentioned by the media.
No.
The media revels in talking about what I call the peripheral stuff.
No, Suhail, should the media speak about it or should Reliance themselves speak about it?
I think
I
it's
mean, as a
bit of
brand
both.
consultant, in fact, if you've been a brand consultant, as they say, to Fortune 500 corporations, Reliance is also one. if somebody is doing good, it's also on the owners of the company to talk about it. It's
Yeah, but again, here I have to say that Neeta and Mukesh will never talk about the stuff that they do. I mean, you have to prod them and push them and, but they'll never talk about it. For instance, you'll never know about the stuff that they do, not only for community building, not only within townships, but even in terms of going abroad. Today, Neeta sits on the Met board. Today, Neeta has contributed, to my mind, from an Indian perspective, more to an Indian position in global art than most people have. But again, they won't talk about it.
There is often demand has been made that India should get a world-class museum, because India really lacks a world-class museum. I don't know if that's up next. But there is one more point that I want to discuss with you on the data that I have says, in a sense, if you say today where Reliance is placed in the India story, and I have seen Mukesh talking always about one fact that a lot of corporate books say that, they are now they want to invest abroad, but Reliance says India is going to be Reliance's focus forever. And one point I especially liked, and I would like to be, Mukesh Ambani made it a point in an interview, I don't know who it was to, that, or Neeta Ambani also made that point, that they only have one house in the whole wide world, and it's in Bombay and it's Antilla. So it's not that like other businessmen who own 40 houses in 40 countries. They say we have one house, this family lives in this house.
Correct.
So don't talk about, so India is a focus, one house. Do you think this family is rooted in India in that sense? Not talking about the wealth, but talking about the rootedness in that sense?
Absolutely. And you can see the manifestation and all that they're doing. By now, with the kind of cash flows they have, with the surpluses they have, the reserves that they have, they could have expanded in many ways. I mean, Mukesh could have picked up startups in Silicon Valley. Their belief is that the growth is in India. And it's very interesting what Mukesh titled his AGM speech.
Like every investor summit, but anyways.
No, in his AGM speech on July 12, 2019, the title of his speech was A New Reliance for a New India.
Yeah.
Because he said that Reliance has to adapt, it has to adopt, because India is now ready to adapt and ready to adopt change of a kind that we haven't seen before.
And there is an interesting bit. They say the new Reliance, as we have discussed earlier, is going to be a millennial-run company. It's going to be a much younger company. In fact, Mukesh once said that,
he said it's under 30.
It's under 30.
If you go to Dhirubhai Ambani Knowledge Center, it's under 30.
And do you think that the new Reliance is already operational, that this project change is already underway with the Jio business? This is going to be a very different company in 2030. When we speak about Reliance, is going to be a completely new business?
Many years ago, I was asked by someone, I think it was the BBC or someone, asked me, what do you think of Reliance? I said, it's the only family, professionally run and managed company. Because the family is, when they're running the company, it's professional. They believe in a professional outlook. There is no, there's no persecutable hierarchy. I mean, even when they built their offices for Jio, everyone has an open plan. So Mukesh is sitting right next to someone who's sitting right next to someone. It's an open plan office. There are no rooms.
In fact, it was almost like telepathy. I remembered something, an interview that I read in Forbes, I think, many years ago. They said the best companies run in the world are family-run companies. Even today, family-run companies are the best-run companies
Absolutely.
in the world, as opposed to. But Suhail, I'm going to discuss Reliance with you on about 6 points. Size. It's a no-brainer. Scale.
Huge.
Speed.
Remarkable.
Consistency.
In this case, inconsistency has worked for them because you never figure what you think they will do. So surprise is the best prize.
Surprise is the best prize. Quality.
Outstanding. I mean, look at their products.
Sub-brands.
Sub-brands now doing very well. They are building more value, whether it's Reliance Trends, whether it's Jio. So, more consumer-facing businesses,
toys.
Fashion. So they're building.
And extensions?
Huge. I mean, for an oil refinery, for a textile manufacturer from Vimal to now Jio, look at the extension.
Yes.
You've covered people in clothing, and now you're making data available to them to shop the world. I mean, that in itself talks about extensions like nothing else.
Okay. I think we're running out of time. And on that note, Suhail, I would like to thank you for your time and this discussion on Reliance. And of course, we'll revisit this issue maybe in 1 year. But that's it for now today on the brands that India made. And with next week, we'll have one more brand to discuss about. Thank you, viewers, for joining us. Thank you, Suhail.
Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.